All right, so we're 4:35. Are you ready, Reagan? I'll call the meeting to order.
Yes.
Great. Well, thank you again for being flexible here. I had intended to be there in person, but I had an extended meeting and wasn't sure if first time I've actually connected virtually to budget. So now I know what it feels like to be viewing it from the outside. So we'll call the meeting of February 8th. Actually, it's February 10th, 2021 Budget Committee online and at the Hamden Academy Library. Unless we have a request to change the agenda, today's agenda will discuss the fiscal year 22 budget process, give an update on the 279s, and then run down through Articles 8, 9, 10, and 11, representing transportation, facilities, debt service, and all other, respectively. And I will now turn it over to Regan unless there are any requests to change agenda. All right, hearing none. Regan, thank you.
Okay, you're welcome. So I'm going to go ahead and present to you all, and we're going to start with an overview of the budget process this year. Okay, we are moving to start our planning for fiscal year 2022. And I think we all can agree that moving away from this year will be an exciting time for us. I'd like to introduce the members of our budget committee. Rob Frank serves as our budget committee chair. Jane Dyer and Jessica Hamilton are budget committee members. And myself as superintendent, Christine Boone, assistant superintendent, and Trish Hayes, our district accountant, are working together to put this presentation together for you and move through each of our budget meetings as we hurtle towards June. I'd like to start with a few quotes because I think school budgeting is a process that is necessary to be deep and thorough. Budgets don't guarantee our success, but they certainly help to avoid failure. I think the resources that we apply in RSU 22 do move us towards that target of success. Sometimes there are places we find that we need to evolve, and I think every year we strive to get closer to that goal. I know that our budget has been so strong that we have avoided failure. The school budget has a deeper impact than simply keeping the school afloat. We all know the opportunities that our budget brings to students. It's more than just the bricks and mortar and the textbooks. It's really about the people who make our district run and run in the way that it does. So I just would like to say the support that our community gives toward our budget means so much to what we're able to provide. And then schools rely upon solid budget plans to survive the inevitable twists and turns that the school year provides. I will say this past year has been the twistiest and turniest one I've seen, and our school budgeting was solid and has gotten us through this time very successfully from a financial side and impact.
Reagan, Dr. Zeus would be proud.
Twistiest and turniest, of course.
Twistiest and turniest, yes, that is agreeable.
So the first thing I'd like to go over is the budget meeting schedule for the year. We are going to be starting February as of now and then moving through June. Our schedule will look like this. We'll plan on Wednesday meetings from 4:30 to 6. We'll have live meetings and Google Meet, and so we're doing both tonight. Alan Gordon is here with us as Frankfort representative, and then we have several board members on Google Meet. So tonight we'll start with Articles 8, 9, 10, and 11 as Rob reviewed. March 10th, we'll move to Articles 6 and 7, which are both administration articles for system and school administration. March 31st, we'll move into Articles 4 and 5, which are student support, athletic and extracurricular articles, along with adult education, which is really important for us to be discussing. April 14th, Articles 1 and 2 are our significant articles for certainly regular and special education instruction in our students' classrooms, and they're very heavy with personnel, so they are critical articles for us to discuss as we move towards a midway of our budget process. May 5th, we will have article updates, and then May 12th, we'll make a final budget presentation with all of the nooks and crannies covered in our budget, and we'll make sure that it is a thorough presentation to all, including fund balance discussion and our reserve amounts. We'll move on May 19th to budget ratification by our board of directors. June 1st, we will have a public budget forum. And then on the 3rd, we have held that date as a traditional district budget meeting date, but I will review in a moment that the state has come out with an executive order which will allow our similar process to last spring. So we will have some flexibility there. And then June 8th, we'll move to the budget referendum validation vote. I'd like to just give you some big picture information related to budgeting in schools for the state of Maine. Governor Mills released her proposed budget. She is putting forth increases in public education of $22.5 million in each of the funding years. And she really is hoping that $45 million of the K-12 public education dedication will help make progress toward a $40,000 minimum teacher salary. So we will be looking for that, of course, in RSU 22. I'd also like to say to you that the school budget process, as I just referred to, is going to have some flexibility. We have Executive Order 8A right here, which updates the timeline by which our budget process can work and the methods by which we do that. We will not be required to have a traditional district budget meeting as we've had in the gym in the past with the number of folks who attend, but we will be required to make sure we have a thorough advertisement of our budget to our community, and we always strive to do that, and we'll do so this year as well. So one of the critical pillars of school budgeting is to understand the Ed279 report. This is the essential programs and services report that the state issues for every school district in the state. This year, the Ed279 was released what we would consider early. It was released the last week of January. It really does define what the cost sharing will be, as long as the base funding for all of the essential aspects of education in Maine. And so we hope that as we move through discussing some of those aspects tonight, people can see where we have had effects from COVID-19 on our Ed279, yet we have come out to the positive, and that is wonderful news for RSU 22. Many of our fellow school districts are facing funding deficits this year, and we are not. So I want to talk about the major funding summary factors coming from the Ed279. Certainly enrollment is a primary factor in how our schools are funded. So the number of attending pupils this year in RSU 22 is down. It's at 2,350. Usually we are above 2,400. The attending pupils, as defined on the Ed279, includes all of our pupils who attend, whether they're from the RSU 22 towns or if they are from the tuition sending towns. But the Ed279 also defines subsidizable pupils, and those are the students who are included in our towns. And that is how we determine cost share in RSU 22. The state share in Maine is dependent on socioeconomic need and valuation. The state of Maine contributes 69.42% toward RSU 22's EPS formula. This buffers the loss of enrollment to us this year because we are up in the state share by 0.4%. And then valuation. The property values in each of our 4 towns are another determining factor to how our funding comes in. And each of our towns has been determined to have increased valuation. The news is that our mill rate on the ED279 has been reduced to 7.9 mils, which is a 0.28 reduction, and that will yield us some fortune as we move into our budget season.
Reagan, quick question. I didn't want to interrupt your last slide. It occurs to me that we have 11 people in the meeting, which I believe are all board members and staff. How were members of the public able to access the Google Meet? Because I know we don't publicly list them anymore.
The agenda was posted for public consumption on our website.
It's in the agenda, not on the calendar. I got you.
It's in both places.
There is no link on the calendar date on the item itself for the Google Meet, but if it's in the agenda, then that would be okay. Yep. I just want to make sure. It seems odd that we don't have any external attendees other than invited folks.
I did see that we had a town manager, for instance, accepted the invite today. So I did see that.
That was an invite, or was it a response to the publicly posted link?
That was an invite.
Yeah, I just want to make sure that we had the meeting listed as public and that it was accessible, or we may have to rerun down through it a little bit.
Well, what we can do is make sure that we will check that, of course, but also we have the recording, so we can share this with everyone.
Correct. All right. Very good. Thank you. Yep. Continue, please. Yep.
Just want to remind everyone that our current FY21 active school budget is at the rate of $34,281,554. And so we will be working at this base to move ahead for FY22. A unique aspect to this year was Corona relief funding. So CARES Act funds came into RSU 22 for a variety of reasons to cover PPE, distance learning, substitutes, management needs, capital projects related to COVID. And you can see that RSU 22 had two CRF allotments, 1.8 million and 1.9 million respectively. CRF 2 was significantly utilized to the tune of a little over 1.3 million to improve the air quality in our buildings. And it was one of the biggest impacts from CRF in RSU 22. And I think it will provide an incredible benefit to our students and staff, along with visitors, for years to come. Okay, we're going to talk about some preliminary figures of the ED279. Our funding level had an increase this year to $20,779,000. That was an increase of $302,000 over FY21. As I said earlier, that's excellent news. We're hearing from many districts who have suffered deficits, and the reason for the deficit is that enrollment has gone down across the state because many folks either turned to homeschooling, chose not to register pre-K or kindergarten students this year, or made different decisions about perhaps having schooling elsewhere. So in order to try to buffer that situation, the state did run a bit of a different model with the ED279 and reduced the class size ratio for K-5 classrooms. That did help RSU 22 to see the $302,000 increase, in addition to some other factors on the ED279. Our student enrollment at 2,350 is a decrease of 72 students from FY21. Remember that these are two-year averages. These are not pure numbers year to year on the ED279. And then our local share will be 30.58% toward our EPS. That will be our local responsibility toward that budget figure. And it is a 0.4 increase in state funding for us. So I'm going to stop there. Any particular questions? We will pull up the ED279 and I'll show you some of the numbers in just a moment. Okay, we'll keep going now. So budget categories as defined by state statute. I just wanted to show you some of the articles that we aren't going to be discussing tonight because we'll go into 8, 9, 10, and 11 in depth, but just to give you a preview of what's coming. So Article 1 is regular instruction. You'll see the subcategories listed there. Article 2, the same. Article 3 is not listed here because it is career and technical education. And starting with last year, the CTE programs received their own ED279s, and we do not have an assessment this year from our CTE program. Now in the future, an assessment could come and we may see Article 3 back on our responsibility list. We will still have to list the article and vote on it, even though it will be a 0 figure during our referendum. Articles 4 and 5 are heavily aligned with student support outside of the classroom instruction, but certainly vital to their day at school and the services they need to be successful in the classroom. Article 6 and 7, administration. So just to give you a quick preview of what you're going to see tonight, I've just got a chart for you that shows what the differences are in between last year's requirement and budget figures that were approved versus what we're going to be proposing this year. Please know that all of the figures that we're bringing to you tonight are definitely preliminary. We've done our best to think early on in the process where we predict things will be, but with COVID and the planning that will come as we learn more about how next year will run, we may have to make adjustments. You can see in debt service that we are going to be saving as we have not brought on additional debt service, and certainly we're going down year to year as we make our way toward payoff. In Article 11, we're proposing a change from having 0 level of support to $50,000 worth of support for school lunch, and we will discuss that in depth in just a moment. The budget process in RSU 22, I just like to be transparent that our process includes multiple steps and pathways. So principals and directors prepare proposals, and they start doing that in December. And then we will be moving into individualized budget meetings. We then also have a position review that occurs at our administrative team level, and that happens by article. We make sure we're talking about anything new that we want to add to the budget, and also resource allocation shifts that may be going on. We use priority budget lenses, so we decide what the priorities need to be and heavily look at student achievement and how we feel that is moving towards success or not. And so we try to align our resources with our students, of course, and with the staff who need to serve them. And then we have these budget meetings, article by article, to make sure there is transparency in the process with our community. So I'd like to thank everyone for participating or viewing this recording. And if you do have any questions, certainly can reach out to central office by phone, or you can email me at my email address, rnichols@rsu22.us. So as a general overview, I think that our process will look very similar as it has in the past 3 years. We certainly have condensed just a bit this year because we feel like we've got the efficiency to do that. But I think what's important is that you get to take a look at the ED279, and you should all have that in your email. And I'm going to go ahead and pull that up for folks by screen as well. So the ED279 has as a critical element the enrollment of our students. And we do have a 2-year average enrollment of 2,350 that I reviewed before. That number gets fed into expectations for how we staff our classrooms. And I'd like you to know that this year, this 15-to-1 teacher ratio was a change. And this was done as a way to buffer the effect of declined enrollment across the state. We look at supports for per pupil costs around substitutes, supplies and equipment, and professional development.
Reagan, does that also, the 15-to-1, does that at all tie into, I know that, you know, theoretically some of our classes where we had cohort A and B were technically maybe an 8-to-1 student ratio, but the days were sort of duplicated, you know, Monday, Tuesday were the same, Thursday, Friday. Did any of that factor into it as well, or is that truly a statewide decline that we're seeing?
It's a statewide decline. And these ratios have no tie to any level of recommendation for numbers in a classroom. They're just purely funding mechanisms.
Got it.
We then come to section 2, which is our operating cost allocations. And this is where you'll start to see subsidizable pupils defined rather than the attending pupils. This is where the ED279 starts to separate out our tuition students from the students who actually live in our 4 towns and for whom the 4 towns would be responsible for paying. Because of course, tuition students are the responsibility of the sending towns. We have basic counts and weighted counts. Weighted counts certainly are funded at a level higher than other categories. And so I just want to point out that pre-K students receive that level of weighting, as do disadvantaged students. We usually get this count from our school nutrition records and parent surveys that we send out. English language learners also receive weighted count. We have targeted funds that are expected to be helping a district pay for some of the required initiatives that come along, such as student testing, pre-K having technology and access to the materials that are so important, along with technology system-wide. And RSU 22 has done a fine job of investing in technology and trying to keep current. I will say that we do not receive a small school adjustment because we are of the size that we are. Gifted, talented, special education, and transportation have allocations related to expenditures in prior years. So we send in reports every single year that report our true expenses, and subsidy comes back based on those figures. Then we have debt service, and you'll see that we have, of course, the Hamden Academy debt service that we pay, but we also have a share of the Frankfurt School. When Frankfurt joined the RSU, this was added to our ED279 simply as a pass-through. This is taken care of by the state. And then we have approved lease for debt service at 0. We do have lease agreements, but they're not included on our ED279 because they're lease purchase agreements that are typical expenditures and other articles. And we'll point those out as we go through. And then we have our page of cost sharing, and it's developed off the percentage of pupils as well as the cost share based on valuations. And it's a 3-year average for valuation. You can see that the mill rate this year went down, which is great news for communities. And we end up with our baseline state contribution. So what I would suggest for folks who are interested in knowing more about the ED279, certainly take a look at the entire document. If you have specific questions, bring those to me or to a budget meeting, and we'll be happy to discuss.
So again, just to recap, I know last year the valuation went up and the mill rate went up. This year the mill rate dropped, I think, from 8.3 to 7.5. Is that right? Or 7.9.4. Yeah.
2 to 7.9.
And recap the valuation again. I didn't have a chance to write that down.
I don't have the literal figures by town of the difference, but I can get that to you.
Okay, no, actually, it's probably in the attachment too, isn't it?
I don't think we have that difference listed.
Yeah, I don't. Yeah, that's true. I don't remember what last year's was to be able to commit it to memory.
Okay,
Well,
we
can just add that to our recap for the next meeting, maybe to share the differences on that.
Sure. Okay, so I think at this point, I'd recommend that we move into reviewing the articles unless there are questions that anyone has out in the audience. Okay, I will go ahead and present for Article 8. Sorry, I'm challenged to bring up the Article 8 document. One moment, please. Is that large enough for you to see?
Yes.
Okay. So this year, Article 8, student transportation, we are proposing $1,441,109.23 budget ask. This is a variance of $2,683, so minimal increase. The reason for the increase is really around insurance. We found that insurance for both vehicles and property insurance has been escalating at a rate beyond the typical, and we want to be sure we are budgeting for that. I am pleased to announce that Sear Bus has committed to RSU 22 that they will extend our contract for the same contract price as the past 2 years. And we're pleased to bring that forward tonight, which does mitigate an increase quite significantly. And we also are adjusting for special education out of district transportation. We are finding that our expenditures, not necessarily during COVID, but during regular years use, is starting to creep up as we have different sites that we need to transport students to, and therefore you're not always able to put students in the same van. And certainly with COVID, we've had to utilize additional vans for spacing. So
Regan, am I remembering correctly that we received a rebate on insurance for something transportation related due to the lower use that we were experiencing? Was that last year? Or am I imagining that?
I don't recall that.
I thought there was a rebate due to COVID, due to very minimal use happening, and not the bus fleet, but I thought it was our own personal, something to do with insurance. But I don't know, maybe I'm imagining or hoping that that's what happened. May have been a different organization. I know that I know that I had heard that happening in the last year, but I guess it wasn't RSU 22. Apologies.
I'd say to you at this moment, I don't recall that related to auto insurance. However, we'll check into that and see if there was some aspect of insurance that we're just not thinking of right now.
Yeah. Mary Ann, you have a question, Regan?
Yes. Are we going to go into? Yes. Okay. I see you bringing that up now. I'll save my question.
Okay. So these are the cost center subtopics within Article 8 transportation. And so you can see that we have some specific reductions. Typically, we just go over the reductions that are significant. Salaries and transportation, we're seeing that lowered because we feel as though we've seen the use and been doing the 3-year average, and we feel like $6,340 should cover us there. I will also say to you that you'll see the insurance increase that I just discussed. And then we're going to have the increase in special education out of district transportation that we do predict, otherwise flat funded. So I'm happy to take questions.
So can I ask a question?
Yes.
Okay, so I'm curious about how we've been talking a lot about equity. We're learning a lot about equity. So I'm curious if an equity lens was applied to preparing this budget, and if so, how was it applied?
Well, the equity lens was applied around the special education out of district transportation, making sure that we were having adequate funding to have those students access their education just as any other student would, even though it's off campus.
So what about
the other part of equity is around the activity busing, and
yes.
that happens in a different article. That happens in Article 4 for extracurricular and after school activity, and also we have specialized summer school that is in a different article as well.
Thank you.
Welcome. Athletic transportation is also in another article. This is just purely to school and home from school.
Regan, I think this comes up every year, so forgive me if it's answered. The gasoline and diesel line, that's not in addition to, our contract with SEER covers that. This is for our own vehicles, correct?
We pay for our own diesel. SEER does not pay for the diesel for the buses. So this is for our gasoline for our van fleet, and also paying the diesel for our buses.
So that SEER contract sounds like it basically covers salaries and benefits.
Salaries, benefits, and mileage, wear and tear on the buses themselves.
Thank you.
Anyone else?
Great questions.
Okay, then we'll move into Article 9. Okay, Article 9 is facilities maintenance. There are many subtopics in Article 9. We're coming to you today with a $3,910,667 request. It is an increase of $24,046. And as you can see, it's 0.62% of an increase. I will walk us through these subtopics. And if you'd like to ask a question, you can stop me and ask it right then. I just can't see you. So Rob, if you could facilitate the questioning, that'd be fantastic.
I will do my best.
Yep. Okay. So
I have two screens and I'm kind of cross-eyed looking between both, looking for raised hands and content. So
well, people can speak up as well.
it's a lot easier when everyone's in the same room. I just look for hands, right? Oh, goodness.
So you can see here that we have basic categories listed, and you can see whether there's an increase in those categories or not. Down below, we get into the information that's detailed for you. So we are looking at increasing operations of buildings cost, and we'll talk about why that is. The care of buildings, we are able at this time to see a decrease, and I want to explain that in detail when we get down to that section. Maintenance of buildings, we see an increase of $65,000. Capital renewal and renovation, we do see a decrease coming to us, and then architect and engineering fees staying flat. So as far as operation of buildings, we do anticipate that we have a snow removal bid that we'll be putting out. And of course, just like with transportation, and I have some other news tonight in this article around our field maintenance contract, we've been getting some generosity from our providers that they have a willingness to consider flat funding. But snow removal is a bid. Just like transportation can be a bid if you're not authorized to extend, and our field maintenance contract is a bid. So we just want to be sure that we are prepared in case our bids come back and we need to have some room. Property insurance increases are going up. There's just no two ways about that. Decrease in electrical cost has been something that RSU 22 has been watching for a few years now very closely, and we're going to continue to budget in hopes that we are in line with our actual expenditures. And then we do have an increase in cost of heating oil and propane. We have been advised not to lock in right now because the price is relatively high, but we have budgeted to address the fact that we will see rises, especially in propane. Care of buildings, a decrease in custodial salaries, and this is due in part to retirement and also due to the fact that we have put a couple of positions out to interview and haven't gotten the applicant pool, so we've been using contracted service. So you will see the contracted services has gone up because we do know we need to still fill the positions. Equipment non-cap, we feel that we can find some savings there while doing a better distribution across our buildings so that we're getting money to each of our buildings in a more equitable way. And then equipment replacement, we are going to recommend a slight increase there because we just see that we will have a few needs coming our way. Maintenance of buildings, you do see an increase of $40,000 there. We are making adjustments as we predict that we will be hiring a new facilities coordinator as our year closes out. And we want to be ready not just for salary increase, but also for a change in benefit package potentially. Contracted services and maintenance, we have many contracts that we are facilitating for maintenance. Honeywell is one of them, G&E roofing. We need to have adjustments in those. And then we have the repair and maintenance services that we anticipate will rise in cost as well. You see a decrease in the interest payment on our repair bond for the turf. And then I can speak to you about specifics in all of those aspects as you like. So I'll stop there for any questions that you may have.
I do have a question, if I could, please. When you're looking at your contracted services for custodians, sorry. Are you finding that that's a savings, or is that kind of a wash because it just so happens it ends up being about the same? We just can't seem to find anybody.
It is typically a savings to have contracted services come in for the custodial cleaning. What we have found is that at times it's a savings financially, but at times a cost because the employee is not our own and may not have as strong of a connection to the school or the culture. But we are finding it challenging to find interested applicants in certain positions, and this is one area. So we continue to look, and we are going to reignite that effort, but we do see a savings in general.
Thank you.
Great question. Regan, I didn't think to ask this at our last building committee session, but were there any beneficial reductions as a result of what we did under the CARES Act funding? I know the electrical work, for instance, did that take anything off of, maybe not this list, probably would come off the capital contribution that we might have done, but now that CARES maybe covered some of that, we'll talk about that at a different time. But is that the one that might have been impacted, but not our general building maintenance?
I would say yes. You know, capital reserve wise, we certainly did an air quality project and we didn't have to touch our capital reserve at all. Mm-hmm. We also are putting in generator preparation in every building that needs it. And we're going to be putting in a generator at Wagner Middle School, and that would have come out of capital reserve, and we don't need to turn to that direction. I will say that we've done some work through CRF for PPE requirements that are rather physical. So bringing in barriers, making any adjustments or shifts to some of the restroom facilities. So those things have also been mitigated from our roles that might have even come into repair or maintenance in our local budget.
I was going to say, were any of the CARES related cleaning and PPE and other things, were they tracked under an article, or were they tracked under a separate ledger due to the fact that the funding was separate?
We did track it under a separate ledger. So when those time cards would come in for custodial related to the CARES Act, we would code them, CRF, for instance, and make sure that it was paid from those pots.
Okay, great, thank you.
You're welcome.
Could you direct me to which line the director of maintenance is located, please?
Right here. Salaries, benefits, maintenance.
And you said that there will be a change in that position. Am I correct?
Correct. There are multiple positions included in this line. So we have a director of facilities. We call it facilities coordinator, but we also have a maintenance person who serves every day here in RSU 22. We also hire summer maintenance folks who are able to construct things or have specialties with care with particular projects we might have to do. So all of those people are included here.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
I have, Regan, I have a question. It's a follow-up to Faye's question.
Yes.
Under contracted services, could you go into a little more depth or in terms of what are the contracted services? What services do they provide in terms of maintenance?
Here? Sure,
Yeah.
no problem. Yes. So let me just see if I can pull my very specific list. Okay, so we have the largest contract is with Honeywell currently, and they manage all of our HVAC systems. We also have contracts with security companies to provide the alarming system. We have roofing contracts for roof inspections annually and then repair if that's needed. We have contracts with, let me think here, there's one other. I'm sorry, it will come to me, Marianne, but that gives you an idea of what we're carrying there. And the Honeywell is substantial. Oh, I know, it's care of our fields. We have a contract with Hodgson Landscaping, and they care for all of our campuses.
Thank you.
Welcome. Okay, without further questions, I'll move on. Okay.
Marianne, did you have a follow-up question? I think your hand is still raised unless it's stuck on my, oh, there you go. Great, thank you.
Did she have a question, Rob?
No, just buttons.
Oh, okay. Okay. Okay, then I'm going to proceed to Article 10. And I apologize if someone has a question and I'm just not seeing it.
No,
Article 10?
people are nodding in agreement. You're all set.
Great, thank you. Article 10, debt service. This is the principal and interest for the New Hampton Academy and the Frankfort debt flow through. So as you can see, I think it's quite self-explanatory. We are requesting $3,481,999 this year. That is a decrease of $135,633. You can see how this plays out, and that we have reductions for both the Frankfort debt service and the New Hampton Academy. The principal for the Frankfort school, Trish has noticed fluctuations in how it comes in. And so this year it just happens to have an increase to the principal itself of $1,963. Any questions there? Okay.
Actually, Regan, I did track down from last year's final presentation we did of the valuations, and it looks like Frankfurt had a $2 million increase from 88 to 90 million. Hamden had a $20 million increase from 650 to 671. Newburgh from 107 to 112 at a 5 million, and Winterport 269 to 275 at almost a 275.8 at about a 7 million increase. I don't know what those percentages are right off the top of my head, but we can certainly compare those and see that all valuations did go up, and it feels like they were all pretty proportional. So that explains some of this slide in the debt service allocation, if you will.
Thank you, Rob. Okay, we'll move on to Article 11. And Article 11 is all other expenditures. In RSU 22, we have traditionally seated school nutrition here in Article 11 and nothing else. So we come to you this year after so many years of having a $0 ask for school nutrition. We are proposing a $50,000 dedication, and this would, of course, be an increase. And the reason is that we recognize right now that all lunches are free to students. We are receiving subsidy for those meal costs, but we are simultaneously utilizing a healthy fund balance that our school nutrition director, Kathy Kittredge, has helped to curate in her years here. And we know that if we continue on into the fall next year in the same model that we are experiencing right now, we are having less students eat. We are having less staff access the meals. And we aren't able to have such a robust a la carte offering as we have had in the past. And so we do know that we should think ahead and put the money in so that we can get our school nutrition program on its legs, as it always has been on its own, help along next year, and then see if we can get back to the self-service that it has provided. So I will say this is an ask that we certainly wish that we weren't having to come to make, but we think it's prudent. Trish, is there anything you'd like to add about that?
No, just that typically schools within the area support the food service program, and we've been fortunate over the years that it's been able to sustain itself. We support kind of behind the scenes with the maintenance and what have you, but some of our compatriots have up to $150,000 in their local budget for support of food services. So, and I know Kathy's watching us closely, so we'll continue to monitor it through the budget season.
Yeah, John, you have a question as well. Thank you.
I was just curious what kind of a balance, I guess an unpaid balance we have for, I know in years past, we've had some students who haven't been able to pay or up with their payments for lunch, what the balance is on that right now?
I can answer that. It's about $6,000 from before COVID.
Would this $50,000 absorb that or not?
No, it just kind of hangs out there until they graduate, and we're keep trying to collect it, and we'll probably be successful in collecting some. So no, not really.
Mm-hmm. So a follow-up question to John's, and maybe it actually ties more into the subsidy question, which is probably more complex than just a simple response. But the COVID funds that subsidized meal drops, and those were really done regardless of knowledge of ability to pay, right? That wasn't even a test in that scenario. Though it seems like those didn't cover the aggregate costs of what we were providing at the end of the day by themselves. And obviously I do understand that without kids in school paying maybe more than the subsidized rate, that's also led to us having maybe a shortfall is not the right answer, but in the past we've always had a surplus.
Kathy, would you like to speak to that?
Right, and right now we only have half of the students 4 days a week, and probably on average about a third are eating. So we have actually less eating. We are doing a decent job, I think, with getting meals to go home with the students on the days they're not in school, but it certainly isn't anywhere near where, when we feed them in school. So there is some good news. There's some legislation to try to push through universal free meals for all, and I think there's a pretty good chance that may happen. But it's really more right now about not having enough students to feed, and they aren't. We have been offering a la carte, but it's just really limited because of the way service is this year. So,
Thank you.
you're welcome.
Okay, so with that concludes our presentation to you around our proposal and our rationale behind these requests. And we certainly are happy to answer any further questions or bring back information at our next meeting if people have things they'd like followed up on.
Great. Well, thank you, Reagan. Unless there are any other questions.
I think Mary Ann has a question.
Oh, Mary Ann,
Yeah,
I see the hand now. Yes. There it is.
Yep. I do have a follow-up question for Kathy. Given what you just said, or what I thought I heard you say, is there, do you believe as a result of the inability to the lack of access, I guess, to the students, do you think food insecurity is an issue for us right now during this COVID setup?
Well, I think it is in some areas, but I think we're covering what we can do. Like we are giving out a lot of meals. We do once a week where people can pick up 5 days of meals, and then we send home meals, usually 2 days worth of meals with the children. So I feel like we're helping the people that are in the highest need, and we're doing pretty well with that. Does that answer your question?
It does, but projecting forward, we all hope that next fall we will be back to everyone in school, but that's an unknown. So does this budget anticipate that, or is it anticipated that there will be ongoing federal funds if that is the case, that we are dealing with that in the fall?
I would say that our budget is anticipating a model where we are back at school, if at all possible. And it is anticipating that the federal funding will be drying up. And so we recognize that we have ESSER funds. I did not speak about those in this presentation because we have not been allocated those funds yet, and we have not made application for them. But those ESSER funds will be the final allocation that we predict we'll be getting. So that's part of why we want to put the dedication towards school nutrition now, because we recognize it's probably not going to come from another source.
Great. All right. Well, thank you.
Well, thanks for kicking off the budget season with us.
It was the smoothest one yet, Reagan.
Oh, well, great.
And I love the new graphics that you changed up the PowerPoint, so it feels like it's brand new.
Hey, we all seek novelty. That's
yes,
for sure.
That's right. Don't want it to be stale. God forbid we would have a budget meeting that is not exhilarating and exciting. So I guess I'll look for a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
All right. Motion by Jane, second.
We don't have a second, so.
Oh, we don't have a second, do we? All right. Well, I'll second it.
Here.
Meeting adjourned.
Right here.
All right. Bye, guys.
See ya.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.